Hi everyone, this is a quick review of the iPhone 10. Now I won't be doing an unboxing because there's apparently a lot of videos already showing unboxing even from the early preview that uh, quite a few reviewers got early access to. And of course there'll be many more I'm sure coming up on YouTube. So this one is really just to look at the iPhone 10 and see some of the features that are on it and take a quick look at it, compare it in size to the iPhone 6, which I'm upgrading from. So first off, we'll take a look at the actual outside of it. So this is the screen, and because I just picked it up, it activated pretty much like the iPhone 7 and 8 Plus and so on. So as you can see, there's the glass back. It's also got the steel, no longer aluminum sides, which is all around, and it's in the same gray finish. Trying to show it against the black here, the black desk, and you can see that it actually has a very shiny, very glossy finish that could almost look like silver or some kind of chrome in certain lighting conditions, but it is indeed gray. So looking at the front, what I liked is there's some animations here. For example, you can see just at the bottom, when you tap it, you've got that little platform that kind of rises and pushes up the swipe to unlock, just in case you didn't know that that's how you would unlock it. So in terms of Face ID, it works really well. I know there's been some comparison videos, I guess, or reviews in terms of is it faster than Touch ID? Definitely is. In real world practice, I'm not going to take a stopwatch and start timing it or anything like that, but in real world, I mean, you pick it up, you look at the phone, and you swipe. You barely even have to do that. If you literally just pick it up and swipe, it's ready to go. So let's see if I can demonstrate that here. Just swipe. Try it again. That was a little bit slow, but I'll just set it down right here. And so if I pick it up and just swipe, oh, it didn't work that time. Okay, you're making a liar out of me. This is Craig Federighi all over again. Let's try that again. I think it's probably because I'm filming using an iPhone 7 and it is blocking part of my face. So let's give that another shot, maybe a little bit off center. And there you go, just like that. So that's really it in terms of the unlocking. Now the one thing I noticed though is that the Face ID does work really well in the dark. Now I'm going to use the word dark lightly here because when you do pick up the phone, as I just demonstrated, once it's off of course, then the screen display is gonna light up. So you're never really in pitch black. So once you do that, the screen is going to basically illuminate your face, never mind all the infrared stuff going on up here in the cameras. So you are going to have a little bit of light even in quote unquote pitch black. I did notice that it does work regardless. At night when I'm in bed or when I'm getting up in the morning and it is still dark, I have had no issues getting the iPhone 10 to unlock at all. So in terms of other things that you might have read, so once you of course unlock it, I have to go off to the side again, you'll see that there's no home button anymore, of course, that's obvious, but then it begs the question of, well, how do you use things like reachability and so on? Well, reachability is actually still there. It's just something that you have to turn on in the settings under accessibility. So same as previous iPhones, you actually have the option, but instead of a double tap, you actually end up swiping down. So let's see if I can demonstrate that here. And just like that, there you go, there's your reachability and you can access it. So again, the other question about reachability is the control center. How do I get that down? Well, you could kind of shimmy up a little bit and then pull it down, of course, and there it is. but again through reachability. So we'll give it another shot. We'll go down here, and then of course to the right, and there you go. There's your control center. Now, by the same token, if you do the left side, then you should get your notifications. So I'm just going to clear that real quick. All right. So the other thing I wanted to look at is really the orientation of the camera, or really it's more of a comment. So because the camera is oriented this way vertically versus horizontally as it is on the plus models like the iPhone 7 Plus, 8 Plus, what have you, it does cause a few issues I noticed. So for example, if we go to the camera, if you're holding it in the landscape mode, what I found, of course holding it with one hand, it's probably not going to demonstrate that very well, but I did find a little bit of my finger was showing up in the actual frame. Whereas if you're holding it vertically in portrait mode, that never really happens. So I'm wondering if that was part of the design, maybe to do with the architecture, but more so maybe because most people do take photos in the portrait mode, or certainly video. You get those annoying skinny videos, as I call them, where they're all in portrait mode, especially when you're watching them on a television or any kind of 16:9 screen. And then you'll see just basically the strip of the video in the middle, and then the massive black areas on the left and the right. Well, I mean, that's just personal preference really, but I tend to take videos in the landscape orientation. And so that's where I have to be mindful of my finger basically being closer to the right camera if that's being activated, and especially when zooming. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was the angle of the Face ID. So when we have the phone lying down on the table, what I find is the Face ID still worked, even though it was more directed up at my chin or at a lower angle to my face. It's still actually unlocked. So again, you have to give it your attention whenever you're unlocking it, and as long as you give it your attention, then it should unlock. So there you go, it's unlocked there. Now if I move it out a little bit more, and well, you can see it unlocked right away even before it turned off. And then we'll try it again. So even over here, let's see what range it has. And no, that's probably just out of range. So that's just to give you an idea. That's where I set the phone down, and this is really where I'm sitting at this kind of a distance. So one gripe that I have about the iPhone 10 is the, I guess, wasted space, if you want to consider it that. And what I mean by that is if, for example, you are typing, so let's see, I'm going to go to start a new message. So when you go to iMessage, what I'm seeing here is there's this huge area at the bottom which takes up a lot of the screen, the screen real estate, and then this area at the top. So you can see, I mean, it's the title, then there's a lot of space around that. So to me that's a bit of a waste. I feel that should be shrunk down, because I mean you're trying to get this bigger screen into a smaller space, but then if you're wasting a lot of that real estate, then you're giving up a lot of that extra screen space. And you can see here, I mean, they do need to leave that area for the touch, and as I was demonstrating, the kind of reachability and so on, and then even just to activate to go back to the home screen and so on. But what you'll see is that you still have certainly a bigger area to type and to view the message history, but it's quite small in comparison to the whole of the screen. I think they could have tightened that up a bit and made it even bigger. So that's just one of the gripes that I have. The other thing is it's really more of an iOS 11 is the bigger title areas. So it's not really evident here, but in mail and so on, you have those bigger areas. In terms of the reachability as well, one thing I didn't show was what was kind of neat is the way that it's not so evident here, but the way that if we go to a new message and then I bring the reachability in again, you've got the kind of rounded edges. So that's of course unique to the iPhone 10. It's you'll see more of the sharp edges in a rectangle form if you do this or use reachability on the iPhone 8. Alright, so the other thing we'll take a look at, being all glass, I know Apple said it is the strongest glass and it's got the steel edge, but the case, so I actually got the Apple leather case. There is a charcoal gray color which is actually quite nice. I believe it's a new color for the iPhone 10, but they were actually sold out, so I opted for the black, which is not a bad compromise. And you can see the Apple logo there. There's some nice grain and so on, and on the other side there's a very nice kind of suede back, and then the edges, it's hard to see in this lower light, but the edges are still that leather, but then it has the harder kind of plastic buttons, which then you can actually see that there's a plastic strip that pushes in accordingly. Unlike the silicone case where it's all silicone and the buttons are silicone as well, this actually has some plastic in there, so it feels a bit more substantial, especially when it's on. One interesting thing, you can just about see that, is it has the iPhone stamp and the whole designed in California with a little real leather symbol at the bottom. It's a little hard to see there, which is normally down here on the back on the iPhone. I mean, if you look at the iPhone 10, it just has iPhone, similarly to the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, but on the 7 and previous ones, I believe it did say designed in California and so on, and had all the international symbols and things like that there. But that is actually on the inside of the case, which you're not going to see once the phone is in. So I'll just pop the phone in here. So they actually give instructions with this case. And you put the top in first and then squeeze around the other edges. Now this is how you power it off. The powering off of the iPhone is a little bit different. It's it got activated obviously because I'm squeezing the phone into the case and all the buttons got pressed, but basically you actually have to do a different button combination, which is, I believe it's the top button, and then the side. Let's give that a shot. Yep, there you go. So you squeeze the power up, volume up button, and then the power button, and then that comes off. You've got the emergency option, the slide the power off, the usual stuff you're used to. So we'll cancel out of that. To take a screenshot, it's different now as well. So you actually press the power, sorry, I keep saying power, the volume down button and the power button. Press those two together. There you go, there's your screenshots, just like that. Now the only issue I find with the leather case, and this actually would not be an issue for most people, is that it rises, the edges rise above the screen. So you kind of see that there on all sides there. It goes above the screen by a few millimeters. So what happens then is when you're going to the edge for any swiping and so on, not here because there's a cutout for the main swipe, but if you're moving over here, you don't quite get to the edge easily, especially if you've got larger hands like I do. The advantage though is that you can put your phone down like that, which I think a lot of people do, but I actually prefer to have that a bit more open, and that's one of the gripes I have about the leather case. The other thing, believe it or not, even though leather is a bit more grippy in general, this is actually, it actually makes the phone a bit more slippery, and it's because if you compare using the phone naked, it has the glass back, of course, and it gives you that grippiness that you don't normally get with the iPhone 6 or 7 or any of the other aluminum based phones. So speaking of which, here's the iPhone 6, and there's the aluminum back, and this is really just for a size comparison, so you can see that it is very similar. And of course, I mean, this is the 6, but it's going to be the same size as the iPhone 8. So if we put them on top, get a better idea. So it is slightly bigger all around, but pretty darn close. And if I take off the case, this will give a better idea, because then you can see if I was to put the iPhone 6 into this case, that gives you an exact view of the difference in size. So there's a bit of a length difference, but it is a little bit wider. And that brings me to another topic, is that the iPhone 10 does have a narrower screen compared to, say, the 8 Plus, but it is taller, of course, so you do get the extra length. But if you're used to the wider screen, that's where you're going to be losing out in comparing the 10 and the 8. So as you can see, again, we have a lot of wasted space up top here. I mean, there's a big gap there, and then even at the bottom, again, take it into account the bar at the bottom, which is your swipe activation area, or whatever it's officially called by Apple. And yeah, there's a big gap between the kind of Siri icon there. Now once you start scrolling though, you can see then that space fills, so it's kind of disappearing behind the two ears, as they call them, and then you're getting the full length there, but still that kind of gap area at the bottom. So yeah, but then once you bring it down, then you can see that again. So that's an example of a lot of the interfaces with a lot of apps I've noticed. Some other apps though, if we go in, and I'm just going to move over to the side here to take the camera out so I can unlock this. Now you're actually seeing this is one disadvantage with not having the physical home button, because I would ordinarily be able to just press that home button. So as you can see, this has a lot of space again at the top and then at the bottom. So it almost, I mean, if you were to pick this up, this could be, I mean, apart from the telltale bar here, this could basically be an iPhone 8, because you've got the two bezels at the top and the bottom now, and I'm finding that's the case with a lot of applications that haven't been updated. So if they have been updated, you will actually see this fill right through the top and then come down a bit closer to the bottom, or they might have some other activation icons or buttons or what have you. But that's just another example of where apps need to be updated or catch up to the iPhone 10 versus the iPhone 8 and so on. So one thing I want to talk about is the display on the iPhone 10. So if you look at the iPhone 10, I mean, granted you're looking at this on a video and not in real life, but one thing I did notice immediately was the vibrancy of display. It is an amazing display from a color, a contrast point of view. In terms of resolution, I know it's a higher resolution than, say, the iPhone Plus series, which are all 1080p screens. This is a much higher resolution, but I'm not seeing that level of sharpness. Maybe I need to do kind of an A/B comparison, but in terms of the colors and the contrast, it was immediately apparent as soon as I turned it on. In fact, if we look at the iPhone 6 that I have next to it right now, I mean, granted there's different backgrounds here, but you can just even see the the brightness is just so different. And I mean, I don't have the full brightness on right now. Let's see. So the brightness level, yeah, I mean it's done maybe about a quarter thereabouts. You know, if I put it up, it's gonna just blow out the video here. But yeah, it's totally different in terms of the contrast and the clarity that way. The iPhone 6 screen, in fact, does look even a bit more yellow, and I do have True Tone switched on here, so I'm sure that's making a difference. But it just, I mean, I'm thinking in this video you can probably appreciate the difference right there. Between the iPhone 8 and the 10, I haven't done a side-by-side comparison, but I'm sure that there would be a difference again with the OLED. With blacks, of course, when you're watching a movie or have any black areas of the screen, you do see definitely the deeper blacks there, and it certainly helps to hide that notch that some people don't like. And that's another point. I don't really see it as a notch, as opposed to getting a little bit of extra real estate on the left and right there. You know, I think someone else even was agreeing with me there, and the way they put it was that it's almost like getting two extra little information screens on the left and right. I mean, the alternative was to black out this top part, and initially that was my gut reaction. It's like, well, why didn't Apple do that? I mean, wouldn't that be an obvious thing? But then you're getting, as I said, these little information bits. So under certain circumstances, those change. So for example, if you're in a call and then you switch out, it'll actually show green on the top left that you're in the call, and or still in a call. And for things like you know, moving the icons around. Sorry, let's try this. So then you've got it changing to done, for example. So that's kind of a neat thing, and a different way to look at it in terms of having that bit of extra real estate. So yeah, you can see definitely the comparison on the screens there. One thing I did notice, and originally I thought it was maybe a True Tone thing, but I do believe it is an OLED thing, is that, and it may not show up here on the video, but in reality, when I turn this iPhone 10 at a slight angle this way or that way, the whole screen definitely has a very distinct blue cast to it. Even if I'm looking straight on and it has more the yellow tint, if it's, you know, the True Tone picking up and doing its thing, once I do that, it automatically goes blue, and the same there. On the iPhone 6, again, I mean, it's an old generation display. You don't really see any difference at all. Like it's actually pretty great how at any angle it'll just it looks like, you know, there's stickers on the glass as opposed to icons underneath there. So it does stand out a bit better at those sharper angles. Again, why I'm saying it's an OLED thing is because when I did the same thing with an iPhone 8 Plus, I didn't see that change in cast. It looked more like the 6 here, where you could really still see everything without any color change or contrast change at all. Any contrast or color change you're seeing right now is a result of my video and the exposure changing using the device I'm recording on. So the other thing I wanted to just show was wireless charging. So I have right here the Mophie puck, so the Mophie wireless charger, and this is the 7.5 watt fast charger, I guess. And all you do, I mean, you've seen this before, I'm sure, is you literally just drop the iPhone onto the puck, and actually you barely even notice, but there's the charging icon right there, so you can see it changes. And of course it does do its little buzz and so on to give you that audible feedback if you don't happen to be looking at the screen. And that's really it. So I got this versus the Belkin just because I like the fact it's smaller. Takes up less of my desk space, and I can just kind of drop that off there. Yeah, I liked the rubberization on the back and the front. It just made things a bit more secure on my desk. It doesn't even shift even when I shake it like that. Or if I happen to bump something into it, like a keyboard, or well, one of my multiple keyboards here. So it's pretty secure that way, and it looks insignificant against all the black furniture here. The only thing I did find with the iPhone 10, and I'm not sure if it's just this model or if it's the nature of wireless charging in general, because this is my first experience with wireless charging, but I find that the back of the iPhone did get a little bit warm after, not so much after the few seconds that I had it in there, but certainly after a good, full charge, or certainly 10 to 15 minutes or so, it would really start to heat up. So again, maybe that's a wireless charging thing, and I'm not talking about heating up to the point where we're looking at the phone exploding or anything like that, or the battery having any significant issues, but definitely warm to the touch, almost if any of you've experienced it, like when you leave the camera running or video running for a long period of time, and then you feel that the phone is very warm. So it's to that level. It's not super hot, but just something to bear in mind as well that I certainly noticed. Last thing I'm gonna just look at for this video is the earpiece. Now it's a little hard to see here, but if I try and brighten up the video here, you can see the earpiece size there in the iPhone 10 is actually quite a bit smaller than even the iPhone 6. And I don't have the 8 as I mentioned, but in the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, the earpiece is a lot wider than what you're seeing here, if you can see that. Apologies for it being a bit dark, but the thing with it though is that the volume is still very loud on the iPhone 10. When I first saw that, I was surprised, and I thought, oh, it's going to be maybe a little quieter. Maybe that's a compromise of everything being put into a smaller package. But no, it's actually really loud when you have it up full volume. And of course it's got the two speakers, the set at the bottom, or not set, but the one speaker at the bottom, and then using the earpiece as the other speaker. So no issues there. I guess that's one way to kind of make the notch a little more or a bit less significant, I should say. Yeah, it's just something I happened to notice. So I think that's really everything that I wanted to cover in this video. As I said, I'll have another short video in terms of the features on how to get that reachability working and so on. So yeah, that's it. Feel free to ask me any other questions about the iPhone 10. If there's anything that you want to see that isn't covered by any other reviews or other videos, definitely let me know in the comments below, and enjoy.